Alright, so welcome back. We are going to embark in our next series of videos here. Of course, we're not going to forget the prototype, but I want to wait for it to warm up a little bit before I start messing around with carbon fiber, because I need all the help I can get, and being out in the cold, trying to get things secure probably isn't the best for my sanity and trying to figure out carbon fiber. So, we're going to start kicking off the build here between these two V8s. So, maybe we should go over what we have. On my right, over here, this of course is a 4.6 2-valve. This is a Ford machine, and this one is the PI heads. So, not too shabby. And then this over here is a 2014 5.7 Hemi. So, we all know them. We all know that it's got a Hemi. But, anyways, we're kind of going to build these things out and put them in a couple old vehicles. This one's going in the L700. And then this one's going in my old 76 F-150. The F-150 had a 390 that I rebuilt, but between me being too young, knowing what I'm doing, and assembling things and whatever, somehow it ate a camshaft, because, you know, flat tappers, they kind of suck a little bit. So it ate a couple lifters, ate the cam, spewed metal all over there, and then I was just PO'd with it. So I thought about tearing it apart, rebuilding it with some roller camshaft, and then I would have to get rid of that Commander 950 TBI that I had on that thing, because that was just a bear to work with. So when I was looking at trying to essentially keep the old engine and modernize it, I decided we might be further along to get into more of the modular style motor. That way, if I decide I want to, I could swap directly to something more like a Godzilla. But we can get where we want to with something like this, and if it works perfectly fine, we may just run that for the rest of its and probably my life. But that's going to be that. Now, of course, everyone's got their idea on what the best V8 is, and kind of on this channel, there's going to be very few other channels that's going to have a specimen of each. So, what we are missing out of this lineup is, of course, the LS based that's in the Crossfire, which I am kind of more partial to the LS stuff, mainly because of its size, power output, and price ratio. All of these kind of have a similar concept to them, but they all get there through a different means of getting there. So, let's basically just go on some kind of ups and downs of both of these type of things. So, let's just start with this guy. This thing is, to a point, almost bulletproof, but when it isn't, it isn't. Where some of the issues with this guy comes in is some people have had problems with spark plugs and not staying in the head where they belong. Other people have had problems with maybe some of the intakes used to leak. They fixed that on some things, not on others. I mean, honestly, aside from that, I don't know of too many. Some models had some chain guide wear, but all in all, these were pretty much bulletproof. You could run them 200,000 miles and still make 100 laps around a racetrack. So they're pretty decent, but as you can tell, it's not super well packaged. We got hoses everywhere, just hoses on top of hoses, on top of more hoses. So this wasn't a very thought out generation. Whereas when you look over at the Hemi, everything's all tight, kind of condensed in on itself. It's got all of its wires, everything kind of tightly packed. So it's a much cleaner setup. This one also has the VVT system and the MDS. Whether you like them or not, it's what it's got. But where your big downfall with the Hemis is the dreaded Hemi tick, which is something going on with the lifters kind of eating themselves and failing, screwing up the cam, murdering the whole thing, and then you're out an engine. The other downside with Hemis is they're kind of expensive. All their parts are kind of a little on the pricey side, but you know, it kind of is what it is. Get her done, let her roll, and who cares? But these things are kind of more expensive to buy as a motor off the used market, mainly because of that whole Hemi lifter thing that eats engines, and a lot of times people will just junkyard engine and keep going. That just leaves you down with more expensive blocks, more expensive that. Doesn't help much that there's 2 spark plugs per cylinder, so you gotta replace 16 every time you do that. At $5 a spark plug, that starts adding up. But it kind of is what it is. Anyways, as far as power output, this being a 5.7 versus a 4.6, you're talking like a 1.1 liter change, but strangely enough, they get about the same horsepower per cubic inch. So this one's about 345 cubic inches, and it should make somewhere about 360 in the setup that I had it in. Got it out of. This one came from a Durango. And then this one out of an Explorer. This was 281 cubic inches, and it made 292 in a 2000 something Ford Explorer, 2005 maybe. Since it's PI, it should be 2000 something. Whatever. Either way, that's what it is. So, I guess our next mode of business is probably starting off with the Ford over here. We're just going to start paring down all of our hoses. Mainly because we don't need the EGR and all that type of stuff. We're not going to have the coolant running through the intakes for that thing. So we're just going to have to start yanking all of this stuff off so we can get to the underlying operation. So this, guys, we'll get to that one a little bit later. So yes, let's get camera on this thing and start tearing her apart. All right, so interesting enough, kind of looking at the oil inlet, and looks like we got some pieces of plastic. So that's one thing. And then there's one more thing that might lead me to another part of that. See if we can get this in view here. Not 100% sure if you'll be able to see it. Let's kind of hit her with a little bit of brake clean up here. See if we can scrub it up for someone to see. So, if you can see right here, this looks like a spot where a valve contacted the piston. So, since that one head looked like it was cleaner than the other head, I am guessing that this thing, its timing chain tensioner broke and allowed the valves to touch down on the cylinders, which they ended up just replacing the head. So somebody pretty much just reman slapped her on there. And that's pretty much that. All right, so we got it basically cleaned up. You can see that guy's got little dent there. You can see the little dent over there, dent over there. So basically not ideal. But it feels like it was just barely starting to hit it. So I kind of wonder if the tensioner started kind of breaking down and left some slack in it, which let the cams follow along a little bit behind schedule or ahead of schedule, depending on what was worn or where, and just started ticking and nicking away on this thing until someone decided to bring it in, and they did the old I know a guy special and just replaced the head on there. As we could tell, the head was slightly cleaner than the other side, and the valve cover was RTV'd in instead of having the gasket. So that is definitely, I know a guy threw on a head that somebody probably got off of eBay. Cam on that other head looked like it had been sitting out and had a tiny bit of surface rust going. So, not ideal. So, the big question. If this was your setup, would you replace it or send it? All right, anyways, thanks for stopping by and watching. We got our 4.6 here. Let me know below whether you are team replace it or team send it. I'm leaning a touch towards team send it. We can just peen those little high edges back a little bit and maybe soften it up a bit, and we can just let it ride again. Or we could replace the whole piston rods and hone everything, which kind of sounds like a chore. But anyways, not too bad. I did take a quick little wiggle test of all the rods and so on, and feels like there's no real movement in there. So we could just close your eyes, hope for the best, and let it ride. I mean, not expecting like another 300,000 miles out of it. This is kind of going in a truck that's not going to see massive amounts of miles, so we might be just fine. Don't know. Anyways, make sure you leave that comment below and let us know how you're thinking about these machines. Anyways, Hemi next time. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you again later.